Welcome to the Prime Digital Podcast. We have episode 2 lined up for you. We got a great show today. First, quick word from our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Johnson's solar-powered flashlights. They said if you're afraid of the dark, well, then you're screwed. So here I have with me today Ryan Borawski from the RYSE with Ryan podcast. And if you're looking for just an absolute jolt of energy and a way to get your day started on the right foot, his podcast is exactly where you want to be. So Ryan, say what's up,
man.
Everybody.
So happy to be here. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for having me here today, Mikey. I'm pumped.
Absolutely, dude. I'm excited. So basically just want to get things rolling here. So the RYSE with Ryan podcast, how did you get started with that? How did that come to be?
Man, that was like a great question. And it's really interesting how it turned into what it turned into here today with the RYSE with Ryan podcast. I would say where it stemmed from was my passion for personal development and personal growth. I have been obsessing in a way over personal development content. So following the Tony Robbins of the world, plug me into those types of individuals that can literally change your life through their teachings. And what I found, and by doing that it worked in my life, that utilizing that knowledge and applying it worked. And it kind of led into many things. One was one-on-one coaching for a while. And then as I started to do that, I thought, how can I impact even more people? And I then from there went to the podcast and started releasing it. And it just picks up steam, momentum. People are taking it in. And then it goes from there. And the reason why I bring you all the way back to where that really started is because Ed Milet says this. And I think it's important for a lot of business owners to hear. Most times we wait till we know exactly what we feel we need before we get started, right? Like we think once I get this right and I'm crystal clear on what I want, then I'll start the business. Then I'll make my website. Then I'll do this. Then I'll do that. And the reality is, as Ed always shares, you'll never know. And this is someone who is a multimillionaire, has been so successful in business. He said, so just run towards your dream. As long as you continue to run towards that every single day, you'll be able to see things that you've never expected to see, and you'll get to places you've never expected to be. And that's really what I think about with my journey on my podcast.
Yeah, man, dude, that's extremely insightful. I mean, it's impossible to like go into anything with 100% certainty, especially when like you're just jumping 2 feet into like, starting a business or something like that. Like it's impossible to know everything you're going to get
into. It's also impossible to keep that expectation that even if you think you know what you're going to get into and you start the business, day one will humble you up with the amount of unexpected things that come your way. So I think there's so much value. And I think entrepreneurs have these instincts to be able to embrace that uncertainty. But also finding certainty in their vision and what they want to accomplish.
Oh, of course. Yeah, man, 100% agree. So with your podcast, like, where's it at right now? I know it's been like heard all around the world. Like, what are the stats right now? What countries, like, where you at?
I just took a look a few weeks ago just for the hell of it, because I got a Instagram post that said a year ago you posted this, and it was like, podcast was in 13 countries. This was a year ago, last August, and in, I want to say, like 37 states. And I was like, for the heck of it, let me look in to see where I'm at. And I think as of now, I want to say it's like 47 countries. And of course, all 50 states.
Oh my God.
And you think to yourself, Tony Robbins always says this. He says, most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade. And that's huge for business owners, because if you set these ambitious goals, which aren't the worst thing for 1 year, but you say, hey, this is what I'm going to accomplish, and you don't get there, you get discouraged and you quit. Whereas if you have that long-term mindset of, when I saw that, Mikey, I was thinking, where am I going to be in 2030? Like, what's that going to look like? Is the podcast going to be a podcast? Is it going to turn into some other multimedia outlet? But I saw that and thought, that's great progress. But immediately, again, going back to those teachings, I was like, okay, most people overestimate what they can do in a year, underestimate what they can do in a decade. Ryan, think about a decade. Where can you be in a decade? And it's exciting to think that way. So the progress is good, but we got a bright future ahead too.
Yeah. Oh, that's the way to do it, man. The effort and the consistency, like you just got to let that compound, and you don't realize where it's going to take you. The short-term thinking is good for certain things, but the bigger picture, that's what's going to get you there.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's part of when you all tune in, you got to listen into Rise with Ryan. It's every morning sitting there for you. So you could find it on your Apple Podcast, Spotify. And for me, I think this goes back to me never really being the most intelligent person in my life. I wasn't always the best in school. I wasn't in the highest level classes. There was a shift that I made when I went to college and really saw that my learning could move me and take me places in my life. But going through all that, not being the most intelligent, I just told myself, like, just show up in life. Half the battle is just showing up and doing it. And I think that plays really well into the strength of my podcast, which is it will be there for you every single weekday morning. Because I know I may not be the most intelligent human in the world, but I can count on myself to show up every single weekday. And so it's interesting how that strength has played into the development of this podcast, where we have people literally waiting to listen to it every single morning before they start their day.
That's nuts, man. And congrats, dude. You're worldwide. You're all over the place.
Yeah, it's exciting. And it goes back to just the overall mission of being able to contribute to others and serve others and make a bigger impact. And I think in my heart, that's the ultimate goal. I then just ask the questions of what's the most effective way to do that? And how do I reach as many people as possible? So it's exciting.
And now kind of branching off of that, is there particular, do you have like a favorite story or person that you've kind of reached through your podcast or somewhere along your podcast journey that like really stands out to you that you're like, this is your favorite moment, or like, you know, this like makes it all worthwhile? You have anything like that?
Yeah. And there's so many interactions I've had with people, and you don't sometimes realize the power of your voice and what it could do to influence people. So there's been many interactions with people just saying, hey, I've listened in. It's made a big impact on my day. I literally don't go through my day without listening. And sometimes it's just weird to hear that, because you think, well, this is just what I do. I don't really think of how it impacts people that much. But I'll tell you what it does reinforce. And a story that comes to mind as to where I got to where I am today on this podcast is with one of my one-on-one coaching clients. When I was doing this and really focusing on it at one point, I was working with this client, and super successful football coach, won state championships, just a great guy, but he was struggling with dealing with success. It was that question of like, you're a Chiefs fan. What happens when you win the Super Bowl? Like, how do you back that up? And what do you do for a mindset to be able to get you through that? Because what's the next step in that journey? So we had that conversation, and one day he called me and he's like, man, I'm not doing well today. And I'm like, well, what's going on? He's like, I don't know. Like, I'm just in this mental funk, and I just don't really, like, to a point was feeling down, depressed. And I had this doubt of like, Ryan, did you get over your head? Do you know how to handle this situation right now? Well, I'm thinking in my mind, Tony Robbins always talks about focus and physiology. If we can change our focus, shift it, and change our physiology, our body movements, we can shift our emotional state. So I thought, well, I read that in a book. Let me give this a shot, and walked him through that, man. And just on that one phone call, there was a complete transformation in his state, which gave him an opportunity to tell him a new empowering story. And he went about his day with a new strategy. And it was one of those moments where I was like, you read about this, but when you apply it, it actually works. And man, I'm telling you, this to me was one of my biggest success stories in my one-on-one coaching. It definitely relates to my podcast because it's a lot of the same content. Hearing him at the very end of our coaching saying, man, those stomach pains I had, which were a lot of them driven by stress that I used to have, the stomach meds that my doctor told me to take because of it, he goes, I don't need them. It's gone. I feel better. And it's the shift that I made in my mentality that has changed everything. So that story stands out to me because it's at the heart of everything that I do. Is I pretty much report what other people have taught me. It's the greats of the world that I study, and then I utilize that in my own life. And that's what I do in my podcast every day.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Wow, dude, to get rid of like, you know, prescribed medicine, you know, just a simple change in your mindset, you know, to get rid of an ailment like that, that's insane.
Yeah. And I'm obviously, like, at that point, like, there's certain things that need to be handled by a professional. He didn't come to me for that. That was just a one-off situation that we had. But it was similar to what I was studying, and I gave it a shot, and it worked really well. And it's just interesting because so many people come to you with, hey, I want to achieve this next level. Here's this goal I want to get. And when you dig deeper, you unpeel that, you realize that there's so many different layers beneath that that need to be addressed during it.
That's awesome. So with that, like, is there, so people are coming to the podcast, they're getting all this like great insight and, things to kind of get them through the day, or just, think better about what they're doing, or just stay motivated. But is there anything else that, maybe people don't know about, or, something that maybe you're looking to implement into the podcast, or something coming up? Like, is there anything that, most of your audience doesn't know?
There's really, for me, I have an issue sometimes with always trying to move to the next thing. And there's a really good book out there called The One Thing, and it's all about focusing on one thing at a time and maximizing that. So to answer your question, I don't have anything outside of obsessively serving the listeners that I have. And I'm just thinking to myself, be faithful with a little and you'll get a lot. And what's interesting is in the month of August here, I will be breaking a record for downloads since the podcast started. And I think there's so much value to providing attention to the current audience and really helping them through. Now, it's nice to have that attention because then you can turn that into possible offerings in the future. But at this point, my vision really is just focused on 100% service. And that was the goal in 2020. I know we've talked about that before. And then coming into 2021, it's what's the next step and what we can do there. But I haven't put a ton of thought into it.
Yeah. All right. Dude, that's awesome. A little record breaking in August. That's
it's been great.
That's awesome. So now we got some like exciting things coming up. Now, aside from that, what is like, do you have like a favorite tip or something that, aside from like, recommending like the one thing or something, like what's like, do you have like a best or favorite tip that, if someone had 60 seconds with you, what are you going to use to get them like fired up?
Immediately address the state in which they're in. And what I mean by that is we're all in certain emotional states at points. So it's like if you go to the gym or you work out, you have that feeling after, right? Endorphins flowing, dopamine's going, and you're in this state. When you are in an empowering state, you tell yourself empowering stories. So that could be for the entrepreneurs listening. If you wake up in the morning, you go right to your phone, you scroll Instagram, you're comparing your life against everyone else's life.
Oh yeah.
When you step foot into your business or your job or whatever you're doing, the stories you're going to tell yourself are, I'm not enough. Why aren't I on vacation? How can they travel so much? How do they have so much time? How is this person so successful? Because you started in a place of a bad state. Well, if you do that, you're telling yourself those disempowering stories. Now your strategy that you're going to use to try to get you to where you want to go is going to be garbage because it's coming from a place of not having. So when I work with someone, or if I'm talking to someone one-on-one, we got to get that state right, get them focused on the right things, whether it's through focus, through physiology. And then from there, we can start talking about what stories are you telling yourself? Internal self-talk is critical to success. It sounds corny, but it's so important. And when you tell yourself these empowering stories, now you think differently on the strategies that you can use to get you to where you want to go. But until you're in that state, you can't do that. So how do you get in that state? It could be working out. It could be deep breathing, physiology. It could just be your focus, focusing on gratitude.
Right.
It could be getting around people who are going to raise your level of energy or raise your perspective or broaden your perspective, raise your standards. Now you have a different story and a strategy that sets you up for success. But you cannot get that story or strategy without being in a good state. Yeah.
Right. And like you said, there's so many things that you could do, like everybody's different. You got to find out what's going to work for you, whether that's working out or like just starting your day with like your favorite song, whatever it is, it's going to get you going and in the right mindset. That's
cold shower, baby.
Oh, cold shower. Oh man. Have you been
every
doing
day
that?
For the last 29 days?
Oh my God. Did you get sick yet or no?
No, it's healthy for you. It's good. No? Give it a shot, man.
I'm going to have to try
It'll get you in the right state. It shocks your system, but it's all part of that, of getting in a state where you can handle stress. So to your point, that could be working out intensely, right? You just got to work on breathing and all of that. Right. But cold showers are an option.
Oh man. All right. The tip of the day. Now, Ryan, is there anything else that you want to leave everybody with? Is there anything that you want to, tell everybody about RYSE with Ryan or anything?
Yeah, I would just say come along for the journey. Like I was talking about, we're having more listeners come over than we ever have had in the month of August. And I'm so grateful for it. It's amazing to be able to share things that I've learned from others. Most of it is me reporting back to you all on the most successful people in certain categories of life and sharing that with you so you can go ahead and win your day and whatever winning looks like in your life. So come aboard. We will welcome you. Excited to have you. And it will be there for you, the Rise of the Ryan podcast, every single weekday, ready to get you going. Because here's what I've recognized is there's so much power in the content that you're consuming. And so when you plug into the Rise of the Ryan podcast, you're going to get messages that will challenge you, that will encourage you, that will make you think differently, but will also inspire action. And I think that's the biggest thing, because one of my favorite sayings is knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in the muscle. And that's where every single day you have someone inspiring you to action there. And that's the beauty of our community. Right. And what you find then is that people will then have different thoughts, and those thoughts will lead to different actions, and those actions will lead to different results. And man, it's game on from there. Next thing you know, you're winning Super Bowls like the Chiefs.
Oh, that's it. That's it, man. Action eliminates fear. That's the way to do it.
Action is 100% the antidote to fear. And there are so many people who are held back because they're waiting. And by the way, I'm guilty of this too. I know I sit here and preach like I know all the answers. I don't. I use them on myself. And half these episodes, I need more for myself probably than my listeners. But action is 100% the antidote to fear. The problem is most people want 100% certainty when they're going to pursue something that, as we talked about at the start of this, you're not going to get that. You have to be able to be uncomfortable, getting comfortable with that uncomfortable and moving forward through it. And it takes a different level of thinking and strategies to do that.
Absolutely. And and Ryan's episodes, those are, as far as like the length goes, that's bite-sized content, man. You're not sitting in the car for an hour. That's like just enough to get you going.
Yeah, we're usually, I usually produce 2 to 5 minutes. I got to tell you, man, I think quarantine's got me talking more, which is probably why I'm just rambling on this. So some of them have gone to 9 minutes or 10 minutes, but you're going to get them in under 15 and just enough time to get rolling. We've gotten some of the best reviews we got is because of its bite size, and there's so much long form content out there, but this is quick to the point. Get through it.
Yep. That's it. You can't say you don't have time for it. You got plenty of time to squeeze that in the morning.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for hopping on. This was a great episode, and there's so much valuable information that you'd be able to share with everybody. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and I cannot wait to listen to more of them that you have. I think there's something so interesting about entrepreneurs and starting your own business, and there's so much to learn from them. So I just want to give you all a ton of encouragement to keep this going, because I think there's going to be stories, and you may have already heard them, that are going to inspire so many people on their business journey. So awesome work, Mikey.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Well, thanks again for hopping on with us. And this is the end of episode 2.
All right. We'll see you all on the Rise of the Ryan podcast tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed the show, hit that subscribe button. Or if you'd like to learn more about marketing your business better and getting more customers, schedule a free 30-minute consultation with us by visiting primedigitalseo.com.